The best laid plans of mice and men are air to go astray. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow, the In Pit Lane after show after party. If you're coming here straight from Channel 31's In Pit Lane, hope you enjoyed our program tonight, where we spoke with Reef McCarthy about what he would have done if he'd have been racing at Winton this weekend. But of course, as most of you would know now, there will be no racing at Winton this weekend. There will be no racing anywhere in Victoria this weekend because we are back in lockdown again. But yeah, look, there are worse things. And hello to everybody who is out panic buying for toilet paper at the moment. It didn't take long, and they're out there.
I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah. Very good to see you out there. I just went down to the supermarket before. It was chaos. I didn't go in. It was that packed.
Safe to do.
And this is this is at 7:30 at night. I went in to get some, and the car park was full, and there was literally, it looked like a riot was happening of people trying to get into the.
You're a brave man. You're a silly.
You would think the world was ending. I mean, trust me, the shops are open. Doc, you would be able. You have an inside view of this. I take it that the shops will be open tomorrow. Will they not?
I have a church mouse sort of perspective. Peripheral vision of the retail therapy that people want to entertain themselves with. And let's just say you're all nuts out there. Shops will be open tomorrow morning, normal hours. The shelves would be as full as they normally are if you all just buy your normal amount of paraphernalia.
Yeah,
community service announcement, done, finished. Gratefully happy. Good luck. Good luck to your family.
Yeah, and good evening again to Russell as well, Russell Clark. Good to know John's got his trailer load, so that's all right. So John's stocked up and ready to go. So any there, and now hello Ayrton. I spoke to Ayrton earlier in the night. Ayrton has his own podcast, Grassroots Motorsport, and I was a guest on his show, and he's come to have a look at this. So hopefully we might have Ayrton on as a guest on this show in the coming weeks here on Full Course Yellow as well. So.
Nice helmet.
So there
Ayrton.
you go. So yeah. So thanks for tonight, Ayrton, and we'll let you know when that interview is going to air, so you can watch it and or avoid it depending on your state of mind. You go to Mark as well. Thanks, Mark, for joining us, and also box back again.
BBB.
And the world will continue. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. The world will continue.
Thanks for that affirmation, BBB. Really appreciate that. I was hoping it would do so, and you've reinforced my, I suppose, faith in society. Please. Yeah, anyway, I'm on my weekend now anyway, so I'm just going to become a secluded little rug rat here out of suburbia, behind one of Brett's, as he says, our iron curtains, and just appreciate the R&R. So, yeah, if you want any, good luck. Just enjoy the solitude, everyone. It's just a good break. Take it. It's only for a few days.
Yeah, and if you're anywhere in the outer eastern suburbs and you want to sort of get into panic buying, like do it tomorrow and Saturday when Doc's not working, so we can avoid the.
Hey, I'll tell you what. I've got an idea for all you over 40s now. You can get a jab. If you want to go line up somewhere and you're healthy and fit and don't want to worry about getting going to get tested because you don't want a matchstick up your nose and then just put sideways, go and get a jab instead. And you know what? Apparently they're running like riots, like Brett just said, down at supermarkets. Go and stand in line there for a couple of hours and
yeah, it'd be a much more valuable way to spend your time than queuing up for bloody toilet paper. That's for
I was going to say you can speak from experience briefly, Brett.
I did. I got the jab. On Friday. I got if you're under 50 and between 40 and 50, you actually get the good one. You get the one that works. I just got the one. I got the one that kills you. I mean, so I could drop dead at any second. I could explode.
Keep watching. If you stay alive, you are immune to the Indian one better than what everyone else is getting, though. That is a medical fact as well, too, though.
Yeah. If anything was going to get me, trust me, it'll be the Indian variant. I mean, with all the Indian food that I eat, My innards think I'm Indian anyway. So yeah. So thanks, Ed, and yeah, great. Sad for Reef not being able to race this
Yeah.
weekend. They have rescheduled the event for later in June. So yeah, let's keep
July,
our fingers crossed.
isn't it the end of July?
Oh, July, is it the end of July?
Yeah.
I did have it down here. I did have it down here somewhere, and I can actually bring that up now. There you go.
June, July, they
Yeah,
both start with
yeah.
J.
There are July 31st and August 1st. There we are. So we've got some things. So these are some of the things we'll be talking about today. But we won't get to.
This is like News 24 across the bottom
It
of the
is. It is like News 24. It'll be just as bloody annoying, I can tell you.
No, not at all. It's well, you guys just go right ahead. I'm just going to keep reading the bottom of the screen anyway. Very quiet. What's PVDA say? Where we go?
Yeah. Yeah, so Paul's been up at Winton today, basically packing up all the stuff that they left from last week, because they said, "Oh, we can leave everything up here because we've got a race meeting next week." And no. Yeah, very disappointing. But anyway, that's and of course, if it wasn't the fact that we went back into the studio that's brought this on, it's a combination of us going back in the studio and the fact that Nyora had another meeting scheduled for Saturday night. They can't take a break, those people. Every single time they've had a meeting. I think they've got one meeting out successfully, perhaps two. But every time they've had a big meeting and we planned, we were going to go and live stream and all, and every time it's like, yeah, let's. And as Chris will tell you, after we finished at the Mr. Boogeyman bar last night with the band, Stuart was saying, is there any racing happening? I went, well, yeah, no. We should try and go down and do something there. And it's like, yeah, well, I'll give him a call tomorrow. And then, no, this. Anyway, let's talk about.
Would have been good to call.
Let's have a bit of a talk about what's been happening and what's happening. Well, it's not happening on the weekend now, but so when do we want to start? Why don't we start with Formula One and Monaco? And Lewis didn't win. In fact, Lewis didn't even finish in the top three. I mean, Pete, what went wrong? I mean, that's not in the script.
No.
Well, in my opinion, nothing went wrong, and that's why I like Monaco, because it often brings up a very different result, like Olivier Panis, I think, in 1987.
Yes.
When he won. And it's like Daniel Ricciardo getting lapped by his teammate. It's quite easy for people to get lapped in Monaco because it's so short. I've seen situations where the leader, the race leader, will lap everybody and win the race, and everybody else will be one lap down.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, I mean, it is a challenge and all that. It's interesting with Dan Ricciardo. I've got something here that's interesting today that his teammate Lando Norris. We were talking about what a great relationship they were having, and Lando perhaps having I don't know whether he's having a dig at Daniel or Daniel or not at the moment, but he was. He was sort of quoted as saying today in terms of why he thought Daniel wasn't performing as well, not only not as well as he's performing, but probably as well as his teammate last year. And this is basically what he said. Daniel, from what I've seen so far, he needs a car that really suits him maybe a little bit more. Carlos was good at driving a car, which wasn't always that nice to drive. He was very good at that. Daniel's very, very fast when he has the car around him and when everything's suited, he added. But as soon as there's a couple of problems, I think just as most drivers do, as soon as you lose that bit of confidence, then you just struggle a little bit more. I don't think that's just with him. That's just something that some drivers have more of than others. It's a confidence thing. I mean, you've got the young guy telling grandma how to suck eggs there at the moment, but
yeah.
He is right, though, in terms of Daniel's always sort of said, in terms of even when he was at Renault and even when he said at Red Bull, he would always say, because he's, as they call it, the last of the late breakers, he really wants that confidence to be able to dive down inside, turn that wheel, and have it go exactly where he wants it to go. He likes it to be sort of tight, really tight at the front end. I think we spoke about that last week, and clearly that's still not happening. He's just not comfortable there.
I just don't want to put the grey hair on anymore, paste any more grey hair, and use the man sort of stuff. But there's two things you're probably again. Lando's completely within his rights to say that, and to a certain extent, I'm backing him up, but I'm also backing Daniel in the same thing. One, even though Lando's young compared to the usual age for a Formula One driver, the kid's been probably racing forever, like anyone has. So for him to make comments about having the right car around you, I think he's extremely qualified. So I'm backing him up. Two, as far as Daniel goes, it's let's not jump the gun a little bit. And I suppose every media commentator in the world or every journalist like that is going to look for a headline and try and get a grab or take something they can get from it and make a headline out of it. It's still only his first season, so I mean he hasn't driven that particular car around all the tracks yet. And he doesn't know all his strengths and weaknesses when it comes to the car and what he needs to do. So they're still learning. And look, sometimes drivers can jump in the car and they can just absolutely click, 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 bang, and hit a few circuits. But then they have a bad one. Have a look at Lewis. He just didn't even finish top 3, of course, and he's widely acclaimed as the best Formula One driver in the last 10 years and probably next few more while he still races. So Daniel, he's still got a lot to learn with the team he is. And, he's not the young gun anymore, but you have your good days and you have your bad days. So, but you made a good point as well, though, too. There, Peter, everyone can get lapped quite easily on that track.
Yeah, and as Paul was saying there, the interesting thing is that there were no safety cars. Everyone said there'll definitely be a safety car. So that didn't sort of throw a spanner in the works at any stage. And pretty much once they'd got into position, it's obviously very hard to pass around there. So pretty much everybody stayed where they were once the fight to the first corner had finished. That was the end of that. Apart from Paul Valtteri Bottas can't take a trick, can he?
No.
Just a quick one. Hey, evening, KP. You got a comment up a minute ago about Daniel. I was talking about Daniel anyway. So, look, I mean, there's tracks that suit every particular driver. Let's just see how he goes the next one. I'm sure he's given himself a good foot up the pants and saying, look, I really did not perform in there, and there's a lot of things I need to get right again next time. It could be a bunch of things. It could be just a few little things he can tweak, and he'll be back up there again.
I've read 2 different motorsport publications. One was published shortly after Bahrain, and there was an interview with Daniel, and he said, I said about the brakes in the tests because I felt like I had to say something about the car. So he said that there was a braking issue, but he said, I just said that to say something. But in actual fact, in a later publication, he said, no, it is the braking that I'm having trouble with.
Yeah, there's obviously something that he's not totally comfortable with, and I think the problem is as I saw somebody, I think it might have been Pete Windsor, was sort of saying that he's in a difficult bind now because he left Red Bull to get away from the fact that he was playing second fiddle, or he felt he was playing second fiddle to Max. And then he went to Renault, where he was clearly the number one driver, and now he's left Renault and gone to McLaren, and probably assumed that he would still be number one driver there because of Lando's inexperience. But the fact is, Lando's clearly a really good talent. He's got that extra, and basically he's playing second fiddle to Lando now. So, they're not. Are they going to sort of change? They're not going to change anything radically. They're going to make tweaks for the car to try and make it better for Daniel, but they're not going to do anything to radically change it that might stuff up what Lando's doing, because Lando's doing, relatively fine. He's doing a really good job.
It'd be too late to change the car anyway, wouldn't it?
I'd have to agree with you there, Richie.
Yeah, I think with the token system and all the rest of it now, there's not a lot that they can do. And I don't know how many tokens tokens McLaren have used already, but
they used pretty much all of them because they had to accommodate the Mercedes engine.
That's right. Yes, you're right. Yes, I forgot about. Yeah, so
okay.
they
The
used
power
more.
plant, yeah, the
Yeah,
power
they used
plant.
more than anybody, didn't they? Because they had to put. Yeah, they make that big change. So.
Did anyone get any more? Oh, Pretty, you might obviously do it because you've got the time behind the scenes and you're watching usually live at the time. Leclerc, they got this issue rectified for the rest of the year now.
Oh yeah, that was just the accident that they just didn't look obviously very thoroughly as to whether there was any damage, and it wasn't the gearbox; it was just the differential, but it wouldn't have been able to be fixed in time
Okay,
when
so
they
the lead
discovered it.
turnaround time is obviously not
Yeah,
repairable. Okay.
because they basically discovered it on the parade lap, on the warm-up lap.
Well, this is the problem of not having. I mean, they're trying to save money, but they've cut down practice, they've cut down qualifying, and of course, if you're old enough to remember, I mean, all categories, all major championships years ago, always used to have the dreaded morning warm up. And it was always, and people said, oh, yeah, only bad things can happen in the morning warm up. And sometimes that did. But the thing was, if you did have the morning, and bad things did happen in the morning warm up, you at least had, unless it was an absolute disaster, you at least had time to fix it. Now they knew nothing about this until, as Pete said, that they've gone out on the warm up lap and gone, oops, hello, something's wrong.
Forget me from my Alzheimer's disease. Did we have spare cars years and years ago as well too?
Yeah,
at one
yeah.
stage? Yeah.
Yes, we did.
So they could easily, if they've got two drivers within a team, they could slap a different couple of panels on, which have got the appropriate numbers at the last minute to give the driver the spare car. It may not be exactly to the specifications that they're going to get the most proficient result from, but the spare car, as I said, forget my Alzheimer's, my dementia kicking in here. They could flip one of those out, and maybe they could pull a top 10 and still get in the points by the end of the race.
Yeah. But we don't have spare cars anymore.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's
it.
one car only, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they always had they even had the teams, because you remember, like at a big start line crash anywhere, the spectacle of drivers grabbing their seat insert and jogging back to the pits so that they could throw the seat and get into the spare car. And I thought that sort of added to the excitement of it. They've got to get the spare car and it was good for the spectator, because if you think about it, they weren't being deprived of seeing the stars in action by a first corner stuff up or something. If the race was red flagged, then they could get back and jump into a spare car. Okay, now obviously it costs them a lot of extra money, but
that's what I mean. They could budget for that as well, though, too, Brett. Obviously, with cost cutting and budget constraints and all the different things over the years, and the separation in dollar value between the smaller teams and the larger factory style aficionados, they could still budget and consider a spare car that could be multitasked for either driver at the end of the day, and it might have, say, a budget of they might say 2-3 million for the year. Obviously a driver may never use that car, but it could sit there and it could be at least there ready for use. And they could put certain specifications on those cars, and they could also put in certain constraints and certain times that they can and can't use it. So the governing body could implement it if they want. But like you said, Brett, that's what I said. I remember years ago, it could add some fun to the whole situation.
Yeah, a bit of drama. I mean, sort of your favourite driver would go out, and it's like, are they going to get back in time? Are they going to be able to get fitted? Will the car? And obviously, the T car was always a compromise too, because it was sort of set up as a compromise between both drivers. And then you had the situation: if both drivers take each other out, which driver gets the car? And that was it's.
Anyone got American dollar on you? Just one of the American dollar. Just one of those round ones that you can't tell whether they're tail or tail.
And there was also the first Melbourne Grand Prix, the memorable Martin Brundle. He rolled the car and then went back to Sid Watkins, and Sid Watkins said, "How many fingers am I holding up?" And Martin Brundle obviously got it right and ran back into the spare car and was able to start the race.
Well, he had a 1 in 5 chance. I mean, let's face it. I mean, how many fingers am I going up? 3? Yes. Oh boy.
Concussion tests were very simple back then, weren't they?
Were they? Were they? Well, in some sports they still are, as you would know, Doc.
Yeah, I had someone on the footy field last weekend, still sport related, someone on the footy field, and she went down with a head knock, clash of heads with another player, more so one of them than the other, and they got up, and I made sure I did at least the three decent questions, like to ask them what their full name was, their address was, how many sister or brothers, and I did do the fingers thing, and that person fortunately got it right, but it was advised to not take the field anymore. It's just too risky these days. When now they've found out the implications on concussion on the long term effects of it as well too. You just can't risk it as much.
It is, because I remember sort of, in the old days, I mean, not so much with football, 'cause I didn't play that much football, but I did for a little while, believe it or not, do a bit of boxing, and you would get knocked out, and you'd come and they'd say, "Yeah, you okay?" And you go, "Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, no worries. What day is it?" And they say, "Yeah, fight on." And where am I?
KP, my old friend, my radio friend's watching right now because he put a post up before. You would have gone well on the Southern Football League last weekend then, Brett, because this one only comes up once in a while and hits the headlines. I think it's made the major paper in the HS in here in Victoria. A player decided to, he's an ex-boxer as well though too, with some history, was out in the field and decided to give a umpire a good verbal abuse with a few hand gestures, and kept on about it and was told to leave the field. However, he didn't leave the field, even though he was told to leave the field with a card. So he was just given life on the weekend. 20 weeks, 14 weeks is life these days. So they made pretty sure of it was well over 14. He got 20 weeks. He will never grace the hallowed turf of the green stuff ever again. So, yeah, just because you're an ex-boxer, don't think you can go out in the footy field and you can beat up the whole of the other 18 players, plus the umpires.
Well, that was the old, remember the old...
Used to be the standard approach, wasn't it?
That was... Remember
yeah.
John Burke from the Collingwood in the reserves at the old Lake Oval. Yeah, sort of, chasing over and jumping. He knocked out two players. He took a swing at the umpire, and then he jumped the fence and belted into a spectator as well. So he had four on that day, and I think he had a very, very long. That was pretty much the end of his career. There.
I think that sort of stuff happens. Sorry.
The famous Ray Slug Jordan line, as there was on commentary at the time, saying, the boy's lost. You got to get the boy off. Get the boy off. The boy's lost it. He lost it all right.
Some of that stuff you were just talking about still happens in junior football every weekend. But anyway, we'll move on from that. and that involves usually AFL coaches at the junior football involved in that sort of stuff. No, they interviewed David Rees-Jones on TV during the week, and he's even said, and he pushed the limits at the tribunal many a time, old David Rees-Jones, and he said, yeah, look, I don't condone anything I did back then, that this sort of stuff has actually got to stop these days. It's just downright thuggery, and okay, it was good back then, but and it was great entertainment, but it's not appropriate these days. Good question, KP. I think it's been at risk all year, but I'll let the other guys have a crack at this one.
I think it's pretty much still at risk because, it's only 5 months out, and by now, even if with a limited crowd, by now tickets would have been on sale, and it's all very quiet as to what's happening. Apart from the support races, mentioning what the support races are, it's ticketing arrangements and everything have been all very quiet. So I think it's been at risk for a while.
It's not going to happen. Formula One have been very, very clear that they will not come if there is a mandatory quarantine session. It doesn't matter when it's held. They will not. That's why they cancelled That's why they cancelled Canada, because Canada said, no, you still have to, we're happy to have you, but you've got to do the 14-day quarantine. And they said, no, that's not happening. They're not going to do it. They can't, because there's not 14 days between Brazil and Australia anyway. So they're coming from somewhere that's got a really huge problem still in Brazil, flying over here and then expecting that the Australian government is going to say, no, in your case, guys, come on in. I'd say that I'd be very, very surprised. In all honesty, I'd be amazed if this thing happens.
I think it'll go ahead, but I think I'm thinking a little bit outside the square here, because the only reason I think it might is a good chance it's 50. I'll lead on the 51% side of the fence, and without getting splinters, because the state government last week, I think it might have even been the acting Premier Molino himself, said the Formula One Grand Prix will still go ahead. And if they say that, they're going to have to break his promise or break his statement. Because
my God, a politician breaking a promise? It's unheard of.
Hold the
I
fort.
don't think that'll mean much.
Is this a cartoon?
The
Hold the fort.
FIA,
No
the
slapstick
FIA
comedy.
is more powerful than the Grand Prix.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So what they will do is to actually make sure that they can still bring it on and not break their promise, but not have to worry about the 14-day embargo. They may hub it. You know what I mean? Hub it. They'll bring everyone over here. They're quarantined within their own limits. They cannot go around, etc., like that. So they don't have to worry about. They'll give them exemption on the 14-day, and they'll run it without crowds. And I know it's going to cost a fortune, and I know they're not going to get ticket sales. But if you have a look at, for example, and I went to the tennis earlier this year when they had the hub life and the tennis players and the quarantine and everything that went on. I don't think they've released the figures, but just the feel of the place, it felt like it was 50% or less in capacity in crowd. They just didn't get the sales and the ticket numbers. So if they did run it, they could, there's always a chance they could run the Grand Prix without crowds.
Because it's on a street circuit and it's out of favour with a lot of people, because especially in Albert Park, I don't think they'll get away with running it without crowds.
Actually, we need to break in at this point and say congratulations to Paul for Facebook for this huge honour as being top fan of. So it's round of applause for Paul. Yep. Congratulations, Paul.
And he's got half his answered his own question, right? He says he has to watch replays. Paul, it's only you have to do it this week. You've got 7 days of quarantine. You can watch reruns this week, and you get some new stuff at the end of the week. Okay, that's
you've got almost. And if you run out of stuff on the YouTube channel, Paul, just let us know, because I've got boxes of bloody tapes in my garage, and you're welcome to go through as many of them as you like. I can tell.
Well, it's called In Pit Lane Home Delivery. So we're going to exactly. So it's Uber In Pit Lane Uber, and if you just request how many boxes you want, I'll go around and pick them up, and I do have access to a ute, which is actually commercially viable, and we'll get an exemption form printed up, won't we, Brett, so I can drive the thing around, and I've got a work permit with it, and yeah, bang, just ask how many videotapes you want, and we'll do home delivery.
That's it. As Kane's saying, the tennis have also refused to do quarantine again, and I mean they did it this time around. But they've also said that no, we're not doing that again. We did it this once; it was a one-off, but it won't be happening again. So, and once again, the government has already said no, there'll be no special favours for them as well. So, I think with the cricket, it's going to be different. The cricketers have all said, both England, Australia, and I think Bangladesh, Afghanistan are coming for a one-off test. In Perth, I think they've all said that yes, they will come in and they're happy to do the 14-day. Well, they're not happy, but they will do the 14-day. What's that?
They're calling Afghanistan a test anyway.
Well, it is now. They've achieved test status now.
Yeah, I'm going to behave. I'll behave there. Look, no, good on them. Like have a crack. Every battler deserves a go. That's one of Kane's favourite sayings.
I think I think the thing is, I mean, if they could actually be very competitive on the right surface. Perth is not the right surface.
Going back to the tennis thing just briefly as well, though, too, I just want to check in. You did say, Brett, that they've all refused. It's either everyone else says they refused, or if it just comes solely from Novak Djokovic and says he doesn't want to do it, I don't believe it.
Because that's true.
He says he speaks on behalf of all the players. No, Novak, if you're
Well,
listening,
certainly not Nick Kyrgios. I mean, Nick, he doesn't speak for Nick, that's for sure. And I mean, what is Naomi Osaka's not talking at all? She's not talking to anybody in France now. She says, "Yeah, I'm not doing interviews. I'm not doing media.
is she having a quiet time?
She's having a very quiet time. She's pulling out the mental health card and saying that she's saying that having to answer questions from journalists is putting a great psychological strain on players, and they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to talk to journalists because journalists ask them tough questions and make them cry.
I think she's also copying a bit of heat because she's Japanese and they're talking about the Tokyo Olympics and she doesn't. She said that she doesn't want it to go ahead. And
that's not her beach ball, is it? That's right. That's not her beach ball, so she doesn't have to comment on it. So she talks about the tennis ball. She doesn't talk about beach balls. Fair enough.
But she did have a lot of pressure in America too. I mean, in terms of when they said when she won her first Grand Slam, that the Japanese media in particular were very, very bitter on her then because they were saying the first Japanese win. The Japanese media were saying no, she's not Japanese. She's she's American. So it was a really strange. She was very upset about that. So.
Got a relationship. I should really get up to speed because we got obviously a bit more to talk about with motorsport stuff. But is it tennis in the Olympics at Japan this year? Is it one of the sanctioned events? Yeah.
Tennis. There's been tennis in the last few Olympics.
Yeah. Sometimes they drop sports off and pick other ones up. I just want to make sure this is still
skateboarding's in this year.
Skateboarding is in this. I'm waiting for pinball to become an Olympic sport, and then I'm there, man. I mean, I'm there on the flippers on the. There. Historic. It's good to hear. That's good to hear, Paul. Historic Winton. I heard nothing but good reports from Winton last weekend. It would have been great to have gone up, especially now under the circumstances. I was sitting there going, you can't afford to go up there. If we can't get back into the studio for another 14 months, then I probably could have afforded to go up there because I won't have to. This is the only upside of this is that it's going to save me from knocking out $100 a week for pizzas for the next 6 weeks. Yeah, no pizzas. I might be able to actually eat myself and pay some bills. Oh, so glad. It'll be so good.
That's all right. Yeah, I think the drags are off up north as well too. So
he's good. Yeah,
a lot of laughs and giggles and kicks are all going to go by the wayside. So I actually got some emails from some sporting events as well too today, just as they were announcing it and saying they're all cancelled. But KP would have got one as well too. It was funny the wording the AFL made to say that the AFL were announcing that they were cancelling the VFL themselves. I think they just need to choose it. KP would have got the same email I did. They need to choose their words a little bit better the way they put out their media releases sometimes. But what's KP's on to the Australian girls skateboard team? Yeah, a couple of them got it, and some of them hadn't qualified yet. I saw that news report there earlier in the week. They hadn't qualified for the Olympics yet. They were hoping to do over in America where they were going to do some qualification stuff. And
they got
and they got COVID and poor things, but they knew the risk. There was a little bit of hush. There was 2 of them that could have got their jabs before they left, but chose not to. So that's been a little bit controversial.
Unfortunate.
But there are a couple of them that are still in the squad over there that they're all training together and they get to go to Japan. So good luck. But anyway, while we're on it, let's take away all the photos and carry on that's going along. And Japan, 80% of the people not happy to accommodate them all. Good luck to all participants that have been training years for sometimes.
Yeah, about the size being deafening. And Andrew Westergaard. Andrew has been out and about, sort of saying that basically the planning continues. Certainly the spin, the public spin is that there, and I suppose it's a bit like what we're doing with both Channel 31 and with the studio in at RMI TV. We've sort of got to, even though sort of the 31 will be officially taken off the air at the end of June. We can't sort of, we've just got to keep planning that it's not, because that's how everybody got caught last year. We just said, okay, that's it. We said our goodbyes, and that was the end of Channel 31. And then with 26 hours remaining, they went, no, it's not. And there was this mad scramble by people, including me, to say, okay, we've got to pull a show together in 24 hours.
That was a great excuse to have a few scotches, though. That was a highlight and a half. I'm sorry about that, but if they're gonna make us go to the 11th hour again, I'll have a couple of scotches to celebrate it.
Yes, but what a memory you have, man. That got us taken down off of YouTube. That one. That's the only one that got that. I should have framed the email. I actually got legal cease and desist letters from Max Mosley's lawyers. And we can probably do, because I did a send up. It was at the time that Max, bless his soul, rest in peace, and all the rest of it. You strange Nazi sympathiser, you. He'd had all of his dalliances with the young ladies of the night, all that. And so we did a send up of a sort of a K-Tel record album of the road. Max Mosley sings the classics like "Hit Me with Your Rhythm Stick," "Love Hurts," etc., etc. So we put that up, and it got whacked. It got taken down in 5 minutes, and I started. Yes, and Channel 31 got letters. The tentacles. Yeah, the tentacles.
Can I ask a rhetorical question on that one? It was worth it, though, wasn't it?
Was briefly, yeah. for the handful of people, of people who saw it, it probably was. I enjoyed it.
The controversy and the fun and the expletives, it was all worth it, wasn't it?
Well, I think it was. We got it from both. We got it because we were ridiculing Max, but also because we used some. Because if you remember, there was footage. There was secret footage taken from the Sun, and I used that footage in the. Thing of Max in the gear and waving his little whip around, and but anyway, good luck to Max. Please don't get ourselves into any more trouble. Oh, look, it's fun to get ourselves into trouble occasionally.
Oh, we get into trouble and we don't even know we're getting into it. Actually, we find out about through sources later, about third rung, that we've got into trouble. Trust me, it's happened a few times already.
Let's move quickly on to as we saw earlier. Jack Miller. Good news for Jack. He's had an extension, I suppose, after winning well the last two races. Ducati wanted to jump on board quickly and lock him in before somebody else grabbed him.
Well, that's it. There would have been There would have been the suitors circling, of course, for Jack. He's put on an excellent display the last couple of races, and he's got his tail up, as I said last time we were doing FCY. Only a one-year deal, but basically it still puts him in good stead for his future. Some confidence. He can just see the rest of the year out and just sprout his arms, sprout his wings out a little bit. But he's basically puts him on par with his Ducati factory teammate. So, Bagnaia and himself have got a great chance and they can work together. They seem to be getting along. Ducati is pleased with both their efforts so far and the development of the bike, and they can work on the positives and the opportunities are always there to have a crack at. So, it's fantastic news, and we'll hopefully see him back in Australia at the end of the year. It's going to be probably difficult to catch him for an interview this time because he's on our hit list, isn't he, Brett? To get him on the show at some stage, but he lives in a different state, and with what's been going on in the world, when he came home last year, he just hung out on the farm, and people visited him rather than the other way around. He didn't get out much. He just enjoys his time back home again. So, but yeah, great news for Jack, and I'm sure there would have been some other factory teams wanting him to learn their bike and maybe hit the podium themselves if Ducati hadn't have jumped on and realised that he always had it there. He just had to produce it on the track, and it was great to see he did. So kudos to all of them, and it signs them up because the sooner they get it done in the season, they can all know what's going on and they can move forward from that sort of stuff. And it just sometimes they all say it, the team says it, and the rider says it, but it is a distraction. at times.
Speaking of bike riders that we have had on the show and interviewed, and you can see the interview from a couple of years ago on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. Congratulations to Jonathan Rea for his 100th World Superbike Championship race win. He's just dominated that series. He's just remarkable. He's just so comfortable on that bike, and are you surprised, Doc, that he hasn't had more of an opportunity to jump into MotoGP?
Unfortunately, I totally agree with you, but the reason why is I think it's his Kawasaki connections. We were talking about behind the scenes at the show earlier in the week, and I saw the highlight reel briefly with Johnny Rea, and you had a fantastic still of him with the front wheel end up on that quacker. As riders do, same with cars, anything you do in life, sometimes you just click, and sometimes it takes a while. I was talking about that with Daniel Ricciardo earlier in the show, and what we were doing earlier. But Johnny Rea just jumped on that quacker in the first season. Within a race or two, he was just dominating, and they come from nowhere. So I think they'll bury a couple of the bikes with him, or they'll just be attached to him. It's just his bike, because he had ridden a factory bike for someone else briefly before. I can't remember whether it was Suzuki or Honda or something like that. But as soon as he jumped on the quacker, it's been smooth sailing since. So I'm not sure how many more years he wants to keep racing. I don't think he'll do a Valentino Rossi and ride till he's 75, or is it 76, somewhere along those lines. But yeah, Johnny Rea. So it's the limited success, Brett, is because obviously with Kawasaki not being in a prototype specification in MotoGP, they pulled out of it many years ago. I'm sure he's been flirted with a couple of times by the factory teams, or even a satellite team like maybe Yamaha, or maybe LCR, Honda, etc. like that. But yeah, there's a couple of times, as we said, we've seen some MotoGP riders come up from superbikes just for one-off fanfare, but they're usually on the younger side. So I think as time passes more, poor Johnny Rea's, I think the water's under the bridge, but he's still going to keep cracking. It's just, and the other thing as well though too, yeah, you get on a MotoGP bike and you jump on a superbike, can be a totally different scenario. It can be a totally different machine. They're a different beast, because a MotoGP bike, if just as an education purpose for about 10 seconds, is completely prototype. The teams within a certain amount of regulations can go for their life. In a superbike, it is a factory bike with a limited amount of modifications to it. So you can only have, it's a controlled tire. You can change the brakes, you can change the brake pads, but you've still got to have all the different stuff that you have on a bike that you actually can go buy at a dealership tomorrow if you wanted to go and spend 15, 20 grand on.
And that's why I think it's so popular, particularly in America and to an extent here with the Australian Superbike Championships here as well. It's a bit like the old days of Bathurst and all the rest of it. You can sort of win on Sunday, buy on Monday. The bike you're getting at the off the showroom floor is not that radically different from what you're seeing racing. Whereas, as you say, the MotoGP, they're the Formula 1 of two-wheel racing, and they often bear little or no resemblance to what you're buying. Apart from the sort of the fairings and the lookalike paint schemes, there's not much in common with the.
But the reason why we have Formula 1 and MotoGP is we do need them as a development for a form of transport around the world. People forget that Formula 1 probably 10 years ago, what they were manufacturing, what they were trying out in Formula 1 is probably in your everyday car that you can buy now, and even in your grandpa's Toyota Camry. And same with the motorbikes. What you're developing on MotoGP, it might be just a different gearing or the way they build something or a certain part. Everything transitions to what we are every day driving around or riding around, getting from A to B. It does. We do need it.
As they say in the classics, racing improves the breed.
Certainly does.
Yeah, and speaking of racing, obviously coming up this weekend, if you'll have to stay up very late or very early in the morning, one way or the other, to see it. But coming up this Monday morning at some ungodly hour of the morning is the running of the Indianapolis 500. Scott Dixon on pole position. Once again, Scotty McLaughlin back in about position 17th, I think, from memory. But right at the back of the field, Will Power in position 32. You wouldn't have thought that was going to happen. and he's only one spot ahead of the last position in the field, which is position 33 for another guest on In Pit Lane in the past, Simona Di Silvestro.
We cheersed them on the week a couple of nights ago, didn't we? Congratulations, guys! I think we went ching with a couple of glasses of alcohol and said, "Geez, well done! You just scraped that one in."
He's literally scraped that one in. If you watched the show tonight and saw the news footage, he scraped along the wall. He hit the safer barrier, didn't break anything. Certainly messed up the toe of the toe in of the rear, but they chose thankfully not to have to go out. They probably wouldn't have been able to go any faster anyway. Not just because of the change of the car, but it was a very hot day and it was just getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and the track was getting slower and slower. So the chances of going any quicker was probably fairly slim. So Will, thankfully has got through. He's scraped through. Former winner of the race, former IndyCar champion, and he'll at least have some chance, even though he's coming from the back of the grid. Scotty's talking up his chances. He's saying he feels he's got a car that's good enough to win if everything goes right. He's confident. He's not just sort of making up the numbers. He's very confident that he can put in a good performance.
Scotty Mac.
Yeah. So
Scotty Mac. Yep.
Yeah. So he's very, and of course Scotty Dixon. Yeah, I mean, what a win would mean. I mean, his legacy is there already. I mean, we sort of underestimated, but he is one of the great IndyCar drivers of all time. And if he won another one, and he's just in such good form this year. I mean, he's just been knocking it out of the park.
Two things that we were discussing on the week and that relate to the show. So yeah, catch up with the In Pit Lane YouTube. Well edited and produced version that Brett's got, because I think he said the tyre that Will threw around was it started with an F and it turned into firecracker rather than actually firestone. I had to get Brett to update me on what the controlled tyre was. You couldn't tell what brand of tyre it was after it went around that corner. And secondly, as well though too, you gave me a bit of an education on Scotty Dixon's past. People were astounded to know that they didn't think Scotty had been he'd done a lot of open wheeler stuff. But Brett, could you please elaborate on how much experience Scotty Dixon has in open wheelers?
Oh, Scott Dixon had quite a bit of experience. I mean, in Formula Holden here, he was an Australian Drivers' Champion, as was Will Power competed in that series. Well, the days of Formula Brabham, Formula Holden. So Scotty Dixon, but Scott McLaughlin is the one who hasn't had much experience. He had a handful of Formula Ford races when he came to Australia, and I think that was more or less to get off his P plate and so he could get into the supercars at the time. But he actually did a couple of Victorian state rounds, and I'm sure in amongst all of those those damn tapes we got out there, we probably got sort of footage of Scotty running around in the state series because he did quite well in that day. So he's clearly a talent. As Romain Grosjean said, he said, considering this guy's come out of sort of virtually a lifetime of racing, an adult lifetime of racing sedans, and has jumped behind the wheel of this thing and has been just as instantly competitive as he has been, and still so young. I mean, it says so much about his innate talent. And I mean, we keep our fingers crossed for everybody. Let's just hope it's a safe race. I always feel a bit hesitant with the Indy 500. It's much safer now with the cars and with the safer barrier and all the rest of it. But when you're lapping at an average speed of close to 5 or even perhaps over 500 kilometres per hour, boy, that's quick. That's ridiculously fast.
Let's just cross everything to make sure we don't see the cars up the barrier like we have over the years. They keep four paws on the black stuff, as the old saying goes. If they can do that, there's more chance of less people losing a digit or something like that. But what's BBB on the bottom there got going? Question to all. Yeah,
that's a good question. Who does everybody think is when Dixon win? I'm going to go. I mean, Honda have really dominated. I'd like to see Scott do, but another person I'd like to see win. And I think he's got his best chance for a long time. He's sort of the oval track specialist, and one of the only two Chevs in the top 10, and that's Ed Carpenter. I think that He comes in, he doesn't do all the races. He's very much an oval track specialist nowadays. But I think it would be a good story after all, for Ed Carpenter to get up and win. So I'm gonna make the call and say Ed Carpenter.
I will take that question on notice. I haven't studied the field enough. I've been pretty busy with extracurricular activities outside in pit lane this week. So I will. I'll put it on one of Brett's posts when he posts up stuff about the Indy by the end of the week. I'll make my prediction then. So I'll have a quick look at the field and delve into my limited talent and experience on some of them. But I will get back to you on that one, BBB.
Pete, have you got a pick?
Is his name Paddy O'Dowd?
Pato O'Ward.
Yeah, O'Ward. Yeah.
Which is the Mexico's famous favourite, or Ireland's favourite Mexican. So it's like I was sitting there, Pato O'Ward. He's from Mexico, so who'd have thought? But he was he did very well. He's won a race, so he's very. Very good. It's a very wide open. It's always a bit of a lottery. Also, I still don't think you can rule out Takuma Sato as well. He's another one who, like Carpenter, just comes alive. Where did
Grosjean park himself on the grid?
He's not racing.
Oh,
Roma, yeah. He decided he's actually been doing some commentary, but he and Jimmy Johnson just said, "No, look, it's." Romain sort of said, no, look, it's a step too far. Indy, that was one of the reasons he was so full of admiration for Scott. He sort of looked and went, I'm not comfortable enough yet with these cars and with this sort of racing for me to jump behind the wheel and be competitive in that situation and push it. I don't think I've got anything to prove. So I think that's a very sensible move by him. But he said during qualifying when he was on commentary, he went, now that I'm here and now that I'm watching everybody else out there, I'm thinking next year, probably I'll probably jump in.
Yeah, his probably hands will have a bit more feeling in them too by the time he gets to next year as well. Though too, I'm sure there's still a few not just mental scars there, but there you go, Jimmy. Good luck. We've got a Scotty Mac for it. We've already got a Scotty D from BBB, so it's Scotty. If you're a Scotty, you're in with the chance.
It would be a fairy tale and a half. It would be, and just imagine if they had another sort of, as they did in the first race in Texas. Just imagine if they got another all New Zealand 1-2. I mean, they'll be insufferable. I mean, they've done so well, but.
With the amount of enthusiasm they all go out for this particular race, and obviously we wouldn't be talking about it halfway across the world if it wasn't an item of interest to everybody. Just finishing the race is quite a feat sometimes. They all go out there and they all want to try and win the race sometimes in the first 5 laps.
I think the thing about it is, as we said, the main thing that we keep our fingers crossed is that it's a safe race, and that there will be accidents, there will be spectacular incidents, but hopefully, like as usually happens, people can just get up and walk away from it. Those cars are designed to crash at high speed, but sometimes things can go horribly wrong, as we've seen well in the past, and. Let's just keep our fingers crossed and hope that sort of if you're not watching it live when we wake up on Monday morning, that we're not reading news of something going tragically wrong. Hopefully the weather. And last time I heard too, there was some doubt, there was some worries about the weather too for this weekend. The forecast apparently was for quite a bit of rain for Friday and Saturday, so I hadn't heard for anything for the Sunday from. But they've got the day, if it rains, because it's the Memorial Day holiday in America, which is sort of their equivalent of an Anzac Day sort of thing, they do have the option that if it rains too heavy, they've got a rain date set aside for the Monday. So hopefully they will be able to get it run and over the weekend. But I haven't seen too much.
When you've got an open cockpit, and the torrential rain comes through, it's safe just to red flag it.
Well, they're obviously at Indy, they're not even going to think about running in the rain. Unlike Circuit of the Americas with the NASCARs last week, which was an absolute debacle. It's interesting. The NASCAR guys have sort of said mea culpa, mea culpa. They said they virtually said, look, we're just so inexperienced with this stuff. We just we really didn't know, and obviously got it wrong in terms of when to throw that red flag. We just didn't know because it's not something we've really had to deal with before. Because normally it's like, yeah, drop a rain, okay, red flag, that's it, it's over. This time around, they'd made the decision that if it rained, they'd fitted the cars. They had wet tyres on standby. They'd fitted the cars with wipers, and they said, if it rains, we're racing through the rain, people. But as they said, it wasn't just rain; it was torrential rain.
Couldn't even see the other end of the track.
No, that's where that big accident happened. That we saw on the with. Cole Custer. I mean, Cole said he said, I had no idea. So I was just driving through a sea. Suddenly he said, I saw a flash of colour and bang.
Up the clacker.
Yeah, so that could have ended really badly.
There was a respectful fire as well too that someone walked away from, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that was Cole's car. That was the one that caught fire.
Because you said to me, wait for the highlights reel. You say you'll see one and then you'll see another one, and don't worry. But wait, there's still more.
There's more. Yeah, it was surprising. The Xfinity race, the sort of their sort of Super 2, we'll call it, and also the truck race. Well, both of them were really good on the road, so they were both good races. So there's more and more interest, I think, in NASCAR running more races, especially with the Gen 3 car. Which, as we said a couple of weeks ago, NASCAR have admitted that they took a lot of cues from the supercars with the Gen 3, and they are looking that they'll be a lot more suited to road racing than the current cars. Are. So
just remind me as well too, Brett. If you like your wheels and tyres taller than your own height, monster truck tickets went on sale this week as well too for later on in the year. If they can happen at Marvel, that'd be good. Yep.
Well, we'll hopefully get filled. One of the last time the monster trucks was here, we had our very own fabulous Philip Taylor who went along for the monster trucks, and I put the microphone in Phil's hand and I said, "Here, you cover this, Phil. This is your suite." And Phil actually got behind the wheel of a monster truck. Yeah. Trust me, they didn't let him start the engine. They actually pushed the car to fake it up because they weren't let. But which was good at the time because it was well before Phil got a license, and I don't think he'd ever sat behind the wheel of a car in his life. So, but either way, so his first experience behind the wheel was in a monster truck.
I was just making sure I couldn't hear something coming down the road now all these years later, still going through, taking things out. That's all right. Just making sure we're all safe in our own homes, even though we're in lockdown. Phil's still going around demolishing everything anyway.
By the way, there's a bit of time coming up. We'll probably talk about this more on next week, or even I think it might even be the week after that on next week's show. But coming up, if you're a drag racing fan like I am, the Winter Nationals, they've become the biggest drag racing event in Australia. They sort of surpassed the Nationals. The Nationals were once the big go. They were the big event, but now it's the Winter Nationals up at Willowbank up in Queensland. Is the biggest drag race meeting in Australia, and it's now the biggest drag race meeting apparently outside of the United States. And they've just signed a deal earlier this week, or perhaps late last week, but certainly in the last few days they've announced it, that KO on Foxtel are going to broadcast all 3 days of the Winter Nationals. So that's going to be huge. That's a massive exposure, even though it's just KO. I mean, it's still big exposure. Sort of semi-mainstream exposure for the sport of drag racing, and also Foxtel are going to run highlights packages on their sports channels as well. So, and they've also got international coverage on MAV TV and Motorsport TV and a few other things. So, yeah, well done to Thunder 400. They're sort of kicking goals at the moment at the professional level of drag racing. At this stage, we still don't know what's happening in terms of Calder Park. I think everything is just still on hold at the moment, and as soon as we know, we'll let you know. But there's no point asking question after, when's the drags happening? When's the drags happening? When's the drag? Are you on Friday? You're on Saturday? You're on Sunday? Shut. We'll tell you, all right. You'll know, all right. I'm sure when they know, they'll tell you. But at the moment, the people who run the thing, Pete, and the people who run the
They've got to get
Calder Park drags. They don't know. Until they know, they can't tell you.
They've got to get all their ducks in a row, and it takes time to get all your ducks in a row. And there's no use shooting bloody your slug gun at them to try and pick them off, because you're not going to get anywhere doing it. So
that's it.
Just sit on your hands like you're going to have to do for the rest of the week, because I'm sure all the pay TV and all the subscription channels were going to get a nice big uptake this week. So there you go.
That's it for sure. I'm just really annoyed that they didn't wait until for a couple of weeks, and then I could have tapped into Disney Plus because I'm waiting for Loki to start. So
yes. Did you just quickly off the side thing, because it is a very popular subject amongst everyone, even in most. Did you end up watching your Mandalorian as well, though, too? That we're going to have to.
No, I'm not. Any of you guys?
No, you're missing out. I jumped on that wagon very late. They just started the second season when I started watching the first, and Stuart, who usually joins us on a full course.
Now he'd be watching The Mandalorian.
Yeah, he did watch it. He was actually at me many a times going, Doc, you got to watch it. Doc, you got to watch it. Doc, you got to watch it. It took me a few months, but I finally got around to it. And yes, everyone else, if you are a Star Wars fan, it is just as good, if not better, in different ways. So yeah, catch up with that. And please, Disney Plus, that is on Disney Plus. And yeah, I did see Loki getting some good reviews so far as well, though. Too. The keep it to read.
That was the drifting. That was Friday night. The drifting guys were out at Calder on the Thunder. So things are going on out there, but they don't really. That's got absolutely nothing to do with the drags, and that's where people get confused. They go, well, yeah, you're running the drifting out there. The drifting has zero to do with the drags and the drag strip, and that's why they're running out there. But my neighbour across and Doc knows who's been past and knows the guy. My neighbour across the way was competing on Friday night, and I haven't spoken to him, but I probably don't need to speak, because judging by all the bits of Nissan that are floating around out the front of his house, out the front of his unit at the moment, I'm not sure that it went 100% well.
Oh, so he's been rubbing up with the best of them, has he?
I think from a few of the panels and the bits of rear suspension that are as I came out tonight, there was on his front lawn. There's sort of the whole rear end of a Nissan Skyline sort of.
Okay, so the wreckers will be getting a few phone calls this week. The wreckers will be
getting some phone calls. Okay, guys, let's call quits there. That's thanks tonight. Been good night tonight. Thanks to everybody once again for tuning in. Now next week, I was going to say we were really looking forward to. We got back in the studio. And we were really looking forward. I was especially looking forward to this coming Tuesday night, because our guest was to have been Will Brown's race engineer Tom Moore from Erebus Motorsport, and he was coming in straight from Winton to talk about the weekend and talk about things. And I suppose I could still talk to him by Zoom, but to be honest with you, I really want to save as many of the sort of local guys. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we might be back in the studio within a week or two.
Well,
but let's just hope so.
It's been always fantastic. We love talking to the race drivers every time we go in the studio, but it would have been an educational evening as well, though, too, because we're getting an engineer's point of view sometimes, which not everyone always gives them a bit of airtime, do they, Brett?
Well, it's hard to get them. As I was saying to Charlie from Erebus, who sort of organised it, and thanks, Charlie, for your work. She did a great job for getting it, because the drivers were, neither of the drivers were available, but she said Tom could come in, and I said that would be fantastic, because I've been trying to get sort of more behind the scenes people, more engineers, like when we spoke to Mick Webb, so I'd like to get more of those people in, because it's very hard, because they're not public people, they're not out in front, and a lot of them.
But they do have personalities too.
Some of them do. Some of them, there's a reason that they hide them.
I've known many of them.
Yes.
and then some of them you don't know anymore either, do you?
Yeah, that's true.
For good reason, because they haven't got personalities anymore.
Okay, I think Russell, as our official timekeeper, has called it quits. So Russell, thanks for that. Yeah, everybody, stay safe, stay calm, don't go out and panic.
Play the prisoner theme, then.
Yeah, so that's the end of it. So
I'll be sitting exactly here until next week.
yes, that's right. We'll all be sitting here. So until we see you next week, straight after In Pit Lane, as I said, watch Channel 31 next Thursday night. There will be an episode of In Pit Lane. What is on it? Well, there'll be at least you'll be getting news from IndyCar and from the Indy 500 and all those sorts of things as well. So we'll let you MotoGP. Anything that happens on the weekend, we'll try and let you know. And in terms of, I've got a few ideas for people that we can pop onto Zoom, perhaps overseas, and have a bit of a chat with. I don't know. We might even. I've had a bit of a word. We might even try and chase down Scotty Mack. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah,
okay,
and you've got Oscar's worth a chat if you can find 5 minutes as well.
If you can find, we are working on that, and we're working on a couple of people, young Australians racing overseas. They're just really busy at the moment because of the COVID thing. They're all over the place, and they don't know from one day to the next where they're going to be. So it's a bit hard, but. Yeah, we'll have someone next week, and as I said, fingers crossed. We really want to get back into that studio. We really enjoyed it Tuesday night, and that was So let's all keep our fingers crossed. Everybody stay safe, stay calm, be nice to each other. There's no point panicking and getting silly about this. It's not it's not as if the bodies are piling up in the streets or anything like this over here. So let's have a good one. We'll see you next week on Full Course Yellow, straight after In Pit Lane, 9 o'clock on Channel 31. And until then, from all of us here, it's thanks for watching us and bye for now.
Good night.
Bye.